Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you so much for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly does make it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X, not a Z. And remember that we're now live on YouTube, Sundays at 12 p.m. Check out our YouTube channel, Zen Sams. All episodes of A Moment of Zen are now available on YouTube. We have a great show lined up for you today. In our influencer segment brought to us by HighThere, we are featuring LA native comedian, actress, and influencer Cali Scott. And today we're chatting about how comedy has finally caught up to female comedians, how she got her start, and what life looks like for artists these days. I'm so excited to debut our newest segment brought to us by Animoca Brands called Hello Open Metaverse. And this week we are featuring the awesome Zaf Chow. Zaf is Director of Digital Strategy and Partnerships at Animoca Brands. For those of you that haven't heard, Animoca is a global leader in blockchain games. They are huge. Zaf is spearheading the brand's efforts in developing the play-to-earn field and, of course, by promoting mass adoption of NFTs and metaverses. Today, she and I are chatting all about Hollywood and entertainment at the Metaverse juncture. And what value does this merger really mean for fans? In our Business and Buzz segment brought to us by Revere Securities, we're chatting with President of Revere Securities, Kyle Wool, and we're going to be joined by Paul Caldwell, Chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames, along with his good friend Thomas Carter, an entrepreneur, CEO, and futurist. Today we're chatting TradeFi, traditional finance, meeting DeFi, decentralized finance. So decentralized finance has really managed to create both excitement and confusion as all kinds of people are seeking to maximize the use of this blockchain-based ecosystem. We're going to talk about what the financial system looks like versus the decentralized one and what it means for our bottom lines. In our Healthy Minutes segment brought to us by ogpay.com, we're featuring Dr. Suzanne Solomon. She's a pharmacist, a media contributor, a celebrity vitaminologist, a pharmaceutical industry expert, and a keynote speaker. Today, we're chatting weight loss, mineral and vitamin deficiencies, how they are affecting your weight and your sex drive. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with our influencer segment brought to us by HighThere.com featuring Cali Scott. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CCP Digital, bringing you a view from inside blockchain, cryptocurrency, and NFTs. Introducing the latest Blockchain Heroes series, Retro Rebellion NFT collectible card packs from the Nifty Company. Available January 2022. Find out more online at ccpdigital.com. A Moment of Zen is brought to you by HighThere, a creative community exploring the culture, craft, and science of cannabis. HighThere believes that we have a collective responsibility towards eradicating the stigma, misinformation, and inequities surrounding this plant so we can unlock its true potential for all. To become involved and find out what all the excitement is about, download the HighThere app from the App Store and Google Play. HighThere, HighThere.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up in just a few minutes in our influencer segment brought to us by HighThere, we're featuring LA native comedian, actress, and influencer Cali Scott. She is a writer and a director of the web series Run Me the Meat, and her big break came after winning Best Actress at the Atlanta Short Film Festival. We're going to talk to her about that in just a bit. That landed her a first TV role on House Out of Order. Today, we're chatting about how comedy finally has caught up to female comedians, how she got started, and what life looks like for artists these days. Now, the first surge of funny women into comedy happened during the stand up boom of the 1970s and the 1980s. And that's when droves of young women, driven with the politics of feminism, started to flood stand up comedy clubs, which were rapidly multiplying nationwide. But the clubs weren't so welcoming. Stage time was hard to come by. And that's because of sexist rules among those who scheduled comedy shows, that you could only have one woman on any given lineup, or at open mic nights, two women could never be put back to back. That meant women had to find time by playing all women's comedy nights where audiences were largely women and primarily gay men. Fast forward to the emergence of new female voices over the past 5 years, and that has brought us to a point where the importance of women in American comedy can no longer be glossed over. There is no going back. The rise of identity politics has reinvigorated feminism and created a demand for points of view that go way beyond those of white men. And social media has further democratized the entertainment world by letting audiences directly express their approval with likes. That's right. Women have been thriving in social media channels for years. And now that the alternative is the norm, female comedians are especially prepared to take advantage of this new climate. Welcoming to the show now is the beautiful Cali Scott. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming on. Okay, Cali, you are really good at what you do. Hilarious, in fact. Can you make us laugh over the next 60 seconds?
I got you. Okay. Well, my daughter is very embarrassing for me. I don't know what her problem is, but I really think that it's because I taught her to be honest. The problem with that is that she only tells the truth when it's embarrassing to me. My daughter and I went to the mall, and a nice lady told us that we look more like siblings than we do mother and daughter. And I walked around for the rest of the day with a smile on my face. My daughter, however, looked very sad, melancholy. So I finally asked her, "What's wrong with you?" And she said, "Oh, well, apparently I look 30. That's my baby.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And how old is your daughter?
My daughter is 15.
God bless you, Mama. You are young. I would have never guessed you had a 15-year-old daughter at all. In fact, I did not know that you were part of the mom club. So welcome, and thank you for being part of it and making light of all the heavy workloads that us moms have to face. Bringing me to I don't know if you knew this, but at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles, Cali, which was owned and run by a woman by the name of Mitzi Shore, women were relegated to a secondary stage in an upstairs corner of the club called the Belly Room, okay? And the Belly Room was a pink ghetto where women were segregated from the men. It was unfair and sexist, to be sure, but in retrospect, it gave women a chance to practice frequently and practice offbeat material without limitations and away from the misogyny, which brings us to today. Women are paving the way. But talk to me about some of the limitations that you have faced as a Black female in the comedy industry.
That's so interesting. I actually perform at the Belly Room now. It's kind of the similar platform where it's a secondary room, but a Black woman actually runs it, and she gives a lot of opportunity to other comics who otherwise wouldn't have the chance to perform at the Comedy Store. It's really like a starting place for us to be able to get on the main stage.
Well, I'm glad to see that women are having more opportunity and that the Belly Room is giving, more runway to women to be able to display their talents. So I'm glad to hear that.
Getting female comics to be on shows is still not the norm. It's like one female per show, or you'll get lucky and there's two. There's a lot of women that go to open mics, but it's a male dominated space. We got to fight very hard and put each other onto our own shows, and still like carry some of the male heavy hitters so that we can still get the same traction, the same amount of audience. And it's just like, it's an interesting space to work in. You got to be ready to fight every single day.
some things just never change because it's old boys school Hollywood mentality, and Hollywood is run by men primarily. It's an old boys club, and I really do hope that women start to pave the way even further. But let's when you look at the actual comedians, okay, let's look at Lena Dunham. She got her start posting comedy sketches on YouTube and creating at least 2 web series, right? Tig Notaro's legendary impromptu set about her breast cancer diagnosis, starting with tweets from comedians in the audience, went viral instantly, and then she was able to be re-released directly to fans through Louis C.K.'s website, so that was great. And as well as other established comedians like Amy Schumer and Samantha Bee, Chelsea Handler and Mindy Kaling. These are all emerging female comedians, and they are the voices of their generation. So female comedians have definitely been ahead of their time. But let's transition to about you winning Best Actress at the Atlanta Short Film Festival. What was that about, and how long ago did that happen?
This was last year. We did a short film. Shout out to Robbie World. He's a director. And as a friend, he was just like, hey, let's do this short film. We literally took a $500 budget and turned it into a festival-worthy piece of work. And it was so cool because it did so many festivals, and it's actually won quite a few awards. But it was so interesting because I remember shooting the film and being like on the streets of Hollywood and just feeling like this is where I want to be at. This is where I want to make it. This is what I want to be doing. And for it to full circle, like come around and do a film about, really like working in this industry. It was a horror film. And I had to deeply dive into my actor bag. I've done things in that movie that I hadn't quite tapped into yet as an actor. And it was an incredible experience. And it makes me so energized as an entertainer. Like there's so many things that you can do now with with social media, being able to really change and make your own way. The exposure that we got from this film has really just helped everybody that was in this project like have a new platform to stand on.
What was the name of the film?
It's called HighThere with an exclamation mark for the I.
Interesting. So that seems like it paved the way for a lot for you. And then, to my understanding, you went on and you became a writer and a director of the web series called Run Me the Meat. What inspired this series?
It's basically me being silly. Run Me the Meat, and a lot of my comedy is based off of how I feel, and I like to empower women that think non-conventionally to just go ahead and like be themselves. I think that a lot of my success is built on the fact that people don't expect my thought process to be so logical or just so direct. They want women to be like very like prissy, and my comedy is just like very direct. It's like, no, let's cut all the fat and just get straight to the point.
No filter, no BS, straight to the core of it all. I love it. Okay. Interestingly, I want to get to know you a little bit more, and I want to ask you some really funny questions. Are you ready for some Q&A? I want you to answer the questions without giving too much thought. You a little bit, but this should be fun. All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. If animals could talk, Cali, which would be the rudest?
Warthogs.
Is cereal soup?
Cereal soup?
Is cereal soup?
Yeah.
What sport would be the funniest to add a mandatory amount of alcohol to?
Baseball.
Could you imagine? Oh my God, people would be getting injured. Okay. What was your favorite TV show growing up?
Probably Chip and Dale.
Oh, yeah. Wait, the Rescue Rangers?
Yes.
Oh, I love them. Okay. Would you rather have no nose or no arms?
Oh, no nose. People stink.
What is your spirit animal?
My spirit animal is probably a flamingo.
Well, see, that says a lot. That like mine's a horse. Which would you prefer to have as your roommate, a goat or a bird?
A bird.
Why?
A goat, like a bird is gonna poop, but like it'll hopefully be in like the corner of somewhere.
Or poke your eyes out in the middle of the night when you're sleeping.
What? What kind of goats have you been around?
The bird.
Goats are not safe. I think they kick, they stink. It's a bigger animal. I want the bird. I can do the bird.
True. All right. If you were an artist, would you paint on your first day? What would you paint on your first day?
What would I paint on my first day? The ocean.
See, we're getting a lot of depth into your soul now. If you were a fruit, what fruit would you be?
What fruit would I be? Probably mango.
Okay, I like that. What's the worst, most annoying catchphrase?
The worst, most annoying catchphrase. Just do it.
Just do it is the worst one.
I think that is the worst slogan catchphrase ever.
Oh yeah. Nike. Okay. What's the worst song ever?
The worst song ever, Friday. Oh, that one song, it's like, it's Friday, and took over for I don't know, a year. It was terrible.
Okay, which musician do you think would make the best teacher?
Usher. He's great at explaining everything.
Really? I was going to say John Legend, but okay, I'll give you one. Yeah, okay, that's good. What superhero or villain would make the best therapist?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, hold on. Batman.
All right, I like that. And finally, because we're almost out of time, what's the most useless word?
I have no clue. That's a really good question. The most useless word?
I don't know. That's a good one, right?
It is.
I would say okay.
Okay. I use it a lot.
That can't be right. I don't know. I'm looking to you for the answer, Cali. The most useless word.
The most useless word is probably like. Yeah.
That's the most useless word. And we are out of time. Cali, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you for having me.
That was our influencer segment brought to us by HighThere, and that was the amazing Cali Scott. Do check her out on her website, caliscott.com with 2 T's. Also check her out all over social media at Cali Scott. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. I'm so excited to debut our newest segment brought to you by Animoca Brands called Hello Open Metaverse. And this week we are featuring the awesome Zaf Chow. Zaf is Director of Digital Strategy and Partnership at Animoca Brands. For those of you that haven't heard, Animoca is a global leader in blockchain games, and Zaf spearheads the brand's efforts in developing the play-to-earn field and, of course, by promoting a mass adoption of NFTs and metaverses. Today, we are chatting all about Hollywood and the entertainment industry at the Metaverse juncture, and what value does this merger really mean for fans? Well, for starters, Meta Hollywood is a community-first ecosystem for entertainment fans and creators, offering exclusive access and utility at the intersection of Hollywood and Web3. Impressively, Zaf is the project owner. Now, we all know the industry has started to grasp the need to engage the metaverse on its own terms. This month, Hollywood giant CAA appointed Joanna Popper, who used to run XR initiatives for HP, to the newly created role of Chief Metaverse Officer. And earlier this summer, Disney hired former Apple executive Mark Bozon to serve as the studio's VP of Next Generation Storytelling Creative Experiences. Paramount is also currently hiring a metaverse producer. Sony snatched up Fortnite developer Epic Games for $1 billion earlier this year. Now, that's all a giant win for the artists and developers making metaverse work, but not much attention is going to the potential metaverse audiences. And as someone who devotes a great deal in research, please believe me when I say there's gold in them digital hills. And here to chat some more is one amazing female industry trailblazer, Zaf Chow. Welcome to the show, my beautiful friend.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure to have you on. Okay, let's chat Meta Hollywood very quickly. So, with access to this vast collection that you guys have of over 60,000 movie memorabilia items, you provide these really interesting opportunities for creators to share their work, participate in productions, and really monetize their talents in both a traditional and a tokenized economy governed by this awesome DAO environment, so to speak. And you manage to very beautifully bridge real world entertainment experiences and digital assets through NFTs on this platform. What vision is most important to you and Meta Hollywood?
I think to a lot of people, like Hollywood is something really far away from them. They don't really get a chance to be involved in a lot of things. But I think through this Meta Hollywood project that we're doing, we aim to create a community that we involve the creators, the fans, and also the studio to be coming together and create something great together. I mean, of course, we can leverage some of the really well-known IP in the past, but I think more importantly, we want to leverage the community and try to create something together and co-own the IP in the future. And I think we are trying to, like, as you mentioned, bring some physical touch to this project as well. And like potentially it can be grow into something like a Soho House, like a social club for fans and for studio or for for artists or even for creators to come together and to meet in real life. I think that would be our goal for this project.
That's so unique and interesting that you're bridging a real world concept like a private membership club to something digital, because now we're going to have this digital twin and this digital layer that we all have to start thinking about. So, interestingly enough, at Meta Hollywood, if I'm hearing this correctly, you basically transport guests into the amazing world of Meta through authentic and rare memorabilia, and I find that fascinating. So let's move on to with the metaverse coming of age. You know, interest is now shifting, Zaf, to the primary value proposition, sort of speak. Can I buy a virtual land parcel and build on it to generate a passive income, right? And the simple answer is that much is currently dependent on the infrastructure of a particular metaverse ecosystem. Some of the popular digital worlds, such as the Sandbox and Decentraland, allow landowners to set up structures, you know, buildings, so to speak, or host virtual events to monetize their digital space. Pretty similar to the concept of owning rental spaces in the real world. Walk me through a simple monetization path one would land on versus a creative path one can participate in on Meta Hollywood, so to speak.
Well, I think for Mount Hollywood, we're not building something like Sandbox. We're not trying to sell land per se. But I think for creators to come in, they may get a chance to crowdfund from our fans or from our community. So people will use the native token of Meta Hollywood to fundraise like a project, and then they can be part of the creation, and they can have like ideas to be voted and everything. So working almost like a DAO, and then of course like some sort of like co-ownership of the IP that they co-create on. So it's not really like the rental ideas in the physical life, but I think it's like creating something that they can actually own and maybe share some profit from as well.
Yeah, I love that because essentially, when you talk about um, you know, at Animoca, you specifically, you facilitate strategic partners transition to Web3, which is, you know, built upon the core concept of decentralization, openness, and really greater user utility. So when you chat about the Meta Hollywood NFT community, this is extremely important because you're essentially building a platform to gather both the creators and the fans, facilitating this interaction between them, really pulling all these movie lovers and these studios and these producers and really these creators closer through this memorabilia and these physical and digital experiences, which I think is fantastic. But this allows opportunities for all, talking about the creator economy. But talk to me about, in your perspective, the importance of merging and harvesting and building a Hollywood community powered by Web3 and the metaverse.
Yeah, because like in the past, I think the communication is really one way. Like maybe the producer or like the publisher announce something, but then the fans doesn't really get a chance to be involved in the creation process and decision making. That wouldn't be in the equation at all. Like maybe after like a long process of production, the fans are only there to see, to admire, to appreciate the project, but they didn't get any chance to be like participating in this production process at all. So I think this creator economy is really important and it's really symbolic for Web3. And I think NFT is just a tool to enable this function or enable this like even contract, quote unquote, contract to be in place. So everyone can contribute and they can be like ambassador of the creation, I mean, of the project as well. But then they can be rewarded maybe from the token, maybe from like the NFT appreciation in value. I think this is really important and symbolic for an old IP, how to evolve and how to utilize Web3 in a new way.
Exactly. What you said makes so much sense. And audiences, to your point, are spending meaningful time in many different metaverses from, VR chat to Grand Theft Auto Online. So why not start even showing movies there, or at least make sure that you're engaging this really cool tech, savvy user, so to speak. But let's move on to another concept here. So Anycube platform, interestingly enough, is set to create a music metaverse and issue NFTs and ecosystem tokens, excuse me, based on the intellectual property rights of Cube Entertainment's globally popular K-pop music artists and actors. And this is extremely relevant because this year MTV's Video Music Awards had a new category called the Metaverse, Zaf, and K-pop took center stage at the MTV VMAs this year with four historic wins. K-pop really took center stage from BTS to Blackpink. Artists dominated the award show, and clearly the metaverse is providing a serious venue for the evolution of creativity, right? So at this point right now, there's a huge opportunity. And I say it's an exhibition venue. That's what the metaverse is. And for anyone in the business of engaging audiences, ignoring them here is tantamount to signing their own death certificate. Talk to me about Anycube, and tell me about what kind of unique proprietary, concepts you're bringing to the metaverse.
Yeah, maybe I can start with why we're choosing K-pop to start with. I mean, compared to Western like pop music, I think K-pop is really special in terms of the fandom. There is like nowhere seen in the world or in the music history. Like, I mean, if you talk about BTS fans, they're like super into the BTS performance and they're like crazy army. But then like for other like Western pop fans. They're not that united in a sense. So we choose K-pop to start to work on like this innovative idea of maybe forming a virtual K-pop group together with the fans. So at the beginning, we will start to leverage the existing IP, existing bands or groups out there, and we attract the K-pop fans onto the metaverse because, like right now in the Web3 space, we're still, I mean, not many people are on. It's still not mainstream at this point. So we're trying to leverage the K-pop fandom to attract more people community onto Web3. And then while we creating this like K-pop fandom community, we're trying to give people a chance from all around the world to get a chance to be going on to audition, for example, because in the past, if you want to be a K-pop star, you have to be selected as a trainee or like a intern for a long, I mean, to be trained for a long time in Korea, and not many people get the chance to do that. But we're trying to like reimagine how this can be done. So in the future, not so long, I mean, not so far in the future, we can actually try to have this global audition concept for everyone in the community that they have some talent. They can maybe get a chance to be go into the audition and can maybe debut as like a virtual K-pop group in the future. I think this is like the most exciting things
That
we're
is that
seeing in the
is
music industry. Yeah.
That's so exciting. I mean, I think people just got really excited hearing you say this and are trying to figure out how they can audition. But the metaverse is definitely the place to start because the metaverse is providing a serious venue for the evolution of creativity. Like you said, from 3D interactive experiences, 360-degree cinema, performance art, and really so many creations from new generation of storytellers that it's really, like I said earlier, it's an exhibition venue. So interestingly enough, for those of you listening, Anycube is going to also bring Cube Entertainment's artists to the Sandbox, I heard. And the Sandbox is a leading decentralized gaming virtual world and also a subsidiary of Animoca Brands. But we have about 2 minutes before we go to a commercial break. And I just wanted to, Zaf, to get your opinion here. So apart from adding the metaverse performance category, MTV created its own VMA's metaverse experience in Roblox, featuring 3 music and dance themed games and, of course, a virtual red carpet for metaverse photo ops. But metaverse concerts have become increasingly common in the past couple of years since DJ Marshmello attracted 11 million people in 2019 to one of the first metaverses concerts in the multiplayer survival game Fortnite. Several artists and companies have jumped on the trend. Rapper Travis Scott reportedly brought in 20 million from a Fortnite concert he hosted in 2020. He earned 54 million from his 26-city Astroworld tour in 2019. So this truly feels like a revolutionary and very disruptive monetization model. Give me your take on this.
Yeah, I think for those artists that has performance or like as you said, like an exhibition venue at utilizing metaverse before, the one thing that we always talk about is the ownership of data. So I think, like in my opinion, like Sandbox is a great place for like virtual concert because like you own the land, you actually know who actually visit your land to attend the concert before, and you have a way to reach them in later. So it's unlike the physical concert, like everyone buy the ticket offline and then you don't know how to contact them later. And actually in some of the other like virtual world or virtual concert that has been done before, the organizer or like the group, the music group actually have no access to those data. So I think like some good ideas around how a music metaverse can be is the true ownership of the data and how like the music group can leverage those later to engage the fans in the future, not just inside the one event, but also like how do they have like sustainable utility or perks for those community and how to engage them in the future.
What a great answer. I love it. You're right to the point. Well, we're out of time. I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on board. It was it was a pleasure chatting with you and very refreshing. You explained it very effectively. You are now one of my experts on the panel.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You got it. Guys, you definitely have to check out the beautiful Zaf Chow. She's Director of Digital Strategy and Partnership at Animoca Brands. Head to metahollywood.io and, of course, anycube.com for an incredible experience. Of course, this is all part of the Animoca Brands family. This was the opening segment of Hello Open Metaverse by Animoca Brands. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in our Business and Buzz segment brought to us by Revere Securities. Today, we're chatting with President of Revere Securities, returning contributor Kyle Wool, and we are joined by Paul Caldwell, Chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames, along with his good friend Thomas Carter, an entrepreneur, CEO, and futurist. Now, Thomas is the founder of Dealbox, and he's also the current interim CEO of Total Network Services. And it's interesting because that company is an emerging leader in fintech. And Thomas has always looked deeper into the utility of blockchain. And Dealbox brings SEC-compliant tokenized securities into capital markets. And that's relevant with what we're talking about today. We're chatting TradeFi meeting DeFi. That's right, traditional finance versus our decentralized finance model. Now, decentralized finance has managed to create both excitement and confusion as people are seeking to maximize the use of this blockchain-based ecosystem. So let's review the traditional financial system. So traditional finance is the management and movement of money. It builds products and services around basically 6 key areas of financial activity: pay, invest, trade, save, borrow, and of course, risk management. Simple. Now, what is decentralized finance system? Well, decentralized finance is building products and services around those very 6 areas of financial activity that I just mentioned using blockchain technology, which is essentially distributed ledger technology, and it comes with a bunch of decentralized protocols. So what do both enable, and what ways do either of them matter to me, to my personal life or my business? Well, here to chat some more are my experts at hand, Kyle, Thomas, and Paul. And our panel ranges from Kyle with his traditional finance mentality to our futurist Thomas Carter, and to, of course, our practical Paul is what I call him. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks. Good to be here.
All right. So Kyle, let's kind of kick it off here. As we know, DeFi offers advantages to unbanked entities, while it also reveals the way in which the traditional technology can increase innovation within the financial space. And of course, these differences also create risk, especially when you consider the lack of regulatory protections and how these can impact lenders and borrowers. And interestingly enough, Kyle, Janet Yellen had a quote. She said, "When new technologies enable new activities, products, and services, financial regulations need to adjust, but that process should be guided by the risks associated with the services provided to households and businesses, not the technology that's underlying. Where possible, regulation should be tech neutral." And that was our Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen. So what do you say to this? And are you on board with the overall concept of DeFi?
I would say I'm not an expert like the two gentlemen that will be on this panel with me today. My background comes out of more the Wirehouse, Morgan Stanley, Oppenheimer side of the business. I am an entrepreneur. I do make a lot of personal investments. I have made some personal investments in some DeFi technology. I'm probably not as optimistic as the other two gentlemen here that'll be adapted so fast. I think the SEC and FINRA and the other major regulatory bodies will not be so quick to adapt, where all of a sudden we're clearing our 144 shares through DeFi and through coins. But I'm optimistic there may be a future for it. I do think the fact when I wire money between here in Europe or here in Asia, that it takes 3 days with an MT103 or with the SWIFT system is archaic. And I would love to see some of this technology speed that up. But I'm probably not as optimistic with my 20 some years experience dealing with regulatory bodies on Wall Street that this will be adopted in the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take that. Thomas, so long as crypto assets remain confined to their own world, they pose little, if any, threat to the traditional finance, to TradeFi system. And indeed, the fact that the recent plunge in the market capitalization of crypto assets from a peak of 2.7 trillion from November to only 1.1 trillion today had virtually no impact on TradeFi suggests that these assets are systematically irrelevant, at least for now. Some would agree, some would disagree. What do you say to this?
Well, I mean, again, with crypto, crypto's sort of crypto, right? But we're more into digital assets and regulated security token offerings, much like the path or, Kyle's background. We want to take regulatory framework and stand up these digital assets and protocols so that there is a reduction in friction in capital markets. So when you could have your AML, KYC, accreditation verification, and all that in a smart contract, you can move digital assets, I think, freely, and they'll be regulated. Again, cryptocurrencies, I really don't have much of a comment there. I invest in them, but I like the digital asset space as we sort of stay into the regulatory framework with security tokens.
Yeah, of course. And when you look at Interestingly enough, one of the main reasons for the belief that DeFi would supplant traditional finance is because blockchain cryptography makes safe transactions more accessible and quicker and really more efficient. So overall, society is going to benefit, in my opinion, from an upgrade in a well-designed financial system. And DeFi, for example, removes fees charged by banks and other financial organizations just for accessing their services. So this really enables individuals to have actual ownership of their money in a straightforward and permissionless manner. So if you wanted to send money to a cousin in another country, it could be a simple and a very quick process. As a result, traditional finance stands in very sharp contrast. Paul, this is one of your areas of expertise. So while the traditional financial system works on a centralized platform controlled by government agencies and intermediaries of all kinds, DeFi works according to a protocol that runs on this decentralized infrastructure powered by blockchain, mainly Ethereum. And consequently, programmers can develop these customized, efficient, and secure financial platforms that are open to anyone with access to a computer and internet. Undoubtedly, DeFi is the new frontier since it allows all these millions of people who don't have access to these traditional financial systems for various reasons. Globally, we have over 1.7 million people that are unbanked, to be managers of their finances and transact with everyone thanks to decentralization, promoting really equal opportunities and unprecedented economic growth. What do you say to this? And talk to me about the bridge here.
I think it's absolutely a bridge, Zen. First of all, I want to say about DeFi, I really believe that the cap markets people and Fiserv and these kinds of companies, they have nothing to worry about when it comes to these DeFi plays that are talking about disrupting them. Because if you really dig deep, you'll find most of these decentralized finance plays are going to disrupt the very companies they rely on to be in business. So therefore, I really am not too concerned about, I don't think they have anything to be concerned about. In fact, that's why I love Thomas's model so much, because it sits in that regulatory framework. I think one thing that everyone should really be familiar with is the name blockchain, but it's the same as like a database. It's junk in, junk out, no matter what. So there's still a long way to go, but there are efficiencies being built into blockchain. Algorand's a great example, is one example of a company that's really created an Algorand blockchain meant for finance, meant for capital markets. And I think that the technologies offer another level, a much higher, an up-leveling of speed of execution, surety of settlement, and things like that. And I think those things are important. And where I find real value are things like, ACH, Nacha. There was Nacha, then now there's instant Nacha, and mid-year next year, they're talking real-time Nacha. But there are companies that are building integrations between those systems, between the Nacha platform and Chats and BIC. And so when those things fully integrate, and it's no longer just about API libraries because everything's already tokenized, now you have an interoperable model where cross-platform authentication and settlement can happen real time, not instantly, not in 3, 5, 10, 20 seconds, but instantly. And that's, I think, really at the infrastructure and the contextual level where it's going. As far as content's concerned, Zen, we're not, over here in our portfolios, we're not very much concerned about cryptocurrencies per se. Blockchain, yes. Cryptocurrencies, if they're in Thomas's world, we're very interested in where he's taking TNS. But we'll stick with the cap markets for the moment, because I really think that's where think that's where the world works.
And Kyle believes that too, and most level-headed, successful people here in your part of the woods think the same way. Kyle, coming back full circle, while we're in these early stages of these technologies, blockchain, DeFi, and smart contracts are really creating new opportunities at an incredible speed. For example, companies that list their shares on traditional systems such as the New York Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange, Tokyo Stock Exchange, right? They're going to begin to issue tokens, a kind of shares in shares that can be acquired in a decentralized way by users around the world, giving the opportunity to access the stock market to a large number of investors of all sizes. What do you say to that?
Well, I think the conversation that we're having right now is very interesting. I agree. what Thomas is trying to do to regulate all this and do it properly with KYC and AML. I think that's a big part to your question, right? So the more people that gain access to the stock market, also you have to look at the risk tolerance of these individuals. So just by bringing more people into the market doesn't mean you're going to be bringing more knowledge into the market. So I would warn people, even though you'll have more people having access to the global capital markets, whether it's through the NASDAQ, New York, London, et cetera, to make sure that you understand your own personal risk tolerance, you understand your own personal net worth. And just because you have access doesn't mean you should be using margin and buying meme stocks or trading crypto, 10-to-1 leverage and things of that nature. So I do think it's great that more people have access, but I also think we should take it with the grain of salt that it is, and that people should not get too over exuberant about it.
Wise words, my friend, and that's why you do what you do. Thomas, DeFi is by definition more open and transparent than traditional finance systems, lowering barriers to entry and potentially really increasing trust between users and lenders. And this guarantees that financial services are accessible to everyone, including small businesses and households with inadequate or even non-existent credit records. This feels like a much better approach. What are your thoughts?
Again, I'm super big on disclosure, and I think if you follow regulatory framework, you're going to have the proper disclosure and the proper information to do the research and to make more informed investment decisions. Having these protocols that are going to create a lot of the efficiency, the smart contracts, and again, removing the friction. But the real money's not going to get behind crypto, in my opinion, just because it's uncertain. And I think you could bring a level of certainty to digital assets that are regulated. And again, I believe that, digital securities, security tokens, I don't know where it's going to wind up at the naming of this at the end of the day, if it's going to be a security token or digital securities or, fall into the digital asset category. But, the regulatory bodies, the SEC, I mean, they're doing this stuff for a purpose. I mean, it's great to have sort of the ability to jump into digital assets and explore some of this innovation with cryptocurrencies. But I think you have to look at it very carefully. And there's no getting rich quick in any of this stuff. So do the research, do your due diligence. And I think if you could, having good information to make more informed investment decisions is really the way to go.
Well said. Well said. And this brings us to the end of this segment. I just wanted to thank you all for coming on and chatting. Great perspectives here. Paul Caldwell, Thomas Carter, and of course, Kyle Wool. You guys really helped shape a very interesting conversation that really brought, real world conversations to the table that people are having right now and presumably are having debates over this at the very table, because I know that this is something that is hitting close to home, especially not close to home, but hitting many markets. So thank you both. Thank you all for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Guys, that was our Business and Buzz segment brought to us by Revere Securities. Make sure you check out reveresecurities.com. That was Kyle Wool, president of Revere Securities. Lastly, history shows that a revolution consuming an existing ecosystem such as TradeFi is exceptionally rare. Given that digital photography has nearly wiped out film stocks and corporations like Kodak, it's possible, but it's improbable. TradeFi and DeFi are almost certainly going to combine. TradeFi offers trust, size, and regulatory approval, whereas DeFi just simply brings innovation at this point. And people feel that DeFi will see a lot more attention over time, and that is only the beginning. Others claim that when TradeFi gets on blockchain, that's where the true application and the true magic will emerge. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcoming back to our Business and Buzz segment brought to us by Revere Securities. We have our returning contributor, president of Revere Securities, Kyle Wool, joined by our good friend, Paul Caldwell and Thomas Carter. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Hey, good to be back.
All right, Paul, we were having a conversation about blockchain technology, DeFi, TradeFi, and all that good stuff. But the public and unchangeable blockchain serve as a decentralized trust source in DeFi. In the TradeFi arena, legislative authorities and regulators, on the other hand, provide public governance, providing central points of control that might limit market access and raise the danger of manipulation. What do you say to this, Paul?
Zen, I'm just wholly in the camp of regulatory frameworks that protect the public from the scams, from the bad actors that are in any space. I think it makes great sense, and I think there should be a way to create or exact policy against that reality, so that people know that, hey, look, if you're tempted to be a bad actor in the space and take advantage of people or whatever, then there are consequences for that. But more importantly, it's about getting the transparency in place and the information in place so people can make well-informed decisions. And I think that all these technologies that are getting developed at the contextual layer, not necessarily infrastructure, that too, but that's more back office, back end. People don't see that. They don't live with that every day. They just use it for whatever. But that contextual layer where context or content resides and so forth, that is customer facing, consumer using, I think until it moves from just being innovative and just being upwardly disruptive to a point where it's truly transformative and it transforms how people think about things that matter to them, I think it's just going to continue to just be basically irrelevant in the minds of the masses, because people simply get up every day, they go to work, they do their thing, they go home, they spend time with their family until something transformative comes along that transforms how they think about how they do any of that, like an Uber, innovative, disruptive, and then it transformed how people think about something as simple as taking a ride. Billions of dollars shift. In this space, when that happens, trillions of dollars will shift. But we're a bit away from that right now. Bit away from that right now.
Kyle, what are your thoughts on his answer?
I mean, I agree with both of them. Excuse me. I agree with both the panelists so far that we need to do this in a regulatory framework so everybody feels very comfortable. But I do think there's two 800-pound gorillas that are also in the room, which are the two largest economies. One is the US dollar, the US economy, which is the US dollar, which is the fiat currency. Not sure how quick the United States government's going to want to give up full control of the fiat currency. And then you also have 1/5 of humanity that has no interest in this business, and that's the Chinese economy. And the Chinese economy has very little interest at all to do with crypto. And I know we're not talking about crypto, but we are talking about futuristic DeFi and TradeFi. And I lived in China. I lived in Hong Kong. It was very different from 2009 to 2012. That was the opening period of China. This is the closing period of China. So if you're going for this to be trillions of dollars, you're going to have the Chinese involved. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, but that's just my take.
That's a very interesting take. Thomas, pipe in here.
Yeah, no, I agree with the panelists. I think they're spot on. I also think that a big factor in any of this, and with new technology, and you could go back to the internet as a perfect example. You had IP addresses, and the internet really didn't take on until there was really didn't catch on until it was easy and DNS happened. So I think you need to have solutions around blockchain addresses, which we're addressing with $ your name. You want to have a human readable name that is an address that sits along this long hexadecimal alphanumeric address. So I think you need to have, in order to have any type of adoption, you got to have a standardization, and you have to have that simplicity. And I think a combination of simplicity and capital markets best practices and regulatory framework, sort of addressing these assets, then I think you'll start to see the adoption and bigger money step in and take hold.
Yeah, well, without a doubt. I mean, listen, currently we're really at a crossroads when it comes to this DeFi adoption. I mean, while we have these very large financial institutions that are starting to familiarize themselves with the technology and how it's going to benefit them, most of them are really remaining wary of the scalability issues and the continued risk of financial loss and the regulatory threats or the system vulnerabilities. And then you have fintechs like OG Pay. They're also getting into the space, which demonstrates increasing appetite for even blockchain and crypto. But of course, in my opinion, regulatory clarity is certainly crucial to the mass adoption of assets such as stable coins, for example, while of course, brand confidence will also prove central if financial institutions and their customers are able to become comfortable, utilizing specific DeFi services. So I think in whole, having the right approach with the right team and the right infrastructure is really key and critical to any business stepping into the DeFi of it all, or attempting to do what you do, Thomas, so eloquently well, bridging and combining the two through the systems that you have in place. So thank you guys for coming on. It was another incredible segment. Kyle, always a pleasure to have you on. Thomas, feels like I just had you on a few days ago, which I did, and now you're going to become a regular. Paul, you're here all like every other week, so at this point, you're a regular voice.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, pleasure.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
That was our Business and Buzz segment brought to us by Revere Securities. That was the awesome Kyle Wool, president at Revere Securities, Thomas Carter, and Paul Caldwell, CEO and chairman at Caldwell Soames. Also, definitely check out Dealbox, great company, and TNS. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in our My Healthy Minutes segment brought to us by ogpay.com, we are featuring the awesome Dr. Suzanne Solomon. She's a pharmacist, a media contributor, a celebrity vitaminologist, a pharmaceutical industry expert, and of course, a keynote speaker. Today, we're chatting weight loss, minerals, and vitamin deficiencies, how they're affecting your weight and sex drive. And according to the good doctor, what if you could take vitamins to help you lose weight? The key is to target your supplements to your body's demands and take the right ones at the proper dose. Now, we all know that vitamins and minerals aren't just meant for protecting you against the cold and flu. They also help keep your body balanced and fight weight gain. There's a complex relationship between how much you weigh and your vitamin and mineral status. And falling short on crucial vitamins and minerals could contribute to weight gain or make it more difficult to trim down. When the body is in optimal state, the amount of energy you take in is carefully balanced with the amount you burn for fuel. Various hormones also handle processes such as stimulating appetite, breaking down food into usable components, shuttling sugar from the blood into cells, and storing energy for future use. Also, let's face it, who doesn't want a healthy sex drive? After all, an active sex drive is linked to pleasure, pain relief, bladder control, better sleep, and so much more. But of course, a robust sex life also increases intimacy with your partner. It's a win-win-win. That said, it's totally normal to feel fluctuations in your libido. In fact, you may be at the thick of a dry spell, but don't fret. There may be ways to spice up your sex life, including, meditation, but when it comes to improving your sex drive, you also want to consider your diet. After all, passion requires sustained energy. Plus, no one wants digestive woos in the bedroom. Are you limiting foods like sugar and inflammatory oils? Are you minimizing your alcohol intake? Well, all of these things impact your sexual drive. And without further ado, let's dig into foods that increase libido and help us lose weight. Two incredible topics. Here to chat some more is the awesome Dr. Solomon. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here to discuss this topic with you.
Thank you. So we'll get to sex in a bit, but first, we know that certain vitamins and minerals serve as vital components that facilitate energy balance. Nutrition and weight balance kind of go hand in glove. Talk to me more about the consequence about minerals, nutrition, and weight, and how it all correlates.
So I think it's important to note that a lot of times we are trying to lose weight, we're exercising, we're eating right, and all of a sudden you just plateau, right? So you're like, wait, I just can't lose pounds. What's going on? And I think that at that point is when I get a lot of patients who come to me and say, what can I do? I've been trying and I can't do much more. And I always say you need to look at your nutritional status and your vitamin status, because a lot of times, I mean, there's over 15 different vitamins and supplements that are linked to weight management. And I can just start with vitamin D. A lot of times a patient's vitamin D level will be low. And we know that a low level of vitamin D is actually linked to poor metabolism of carbohydrates. And so all of those genes that regulate vitamin D are altering the way that fat cells form in people. So if your vitamin D is low, you're never probably going to be able to achieve the goal weight or the weight that you're interested in. And that's just one example of how many vitamins can impact our weight.
Interesting. Yeah, of course. I mean, we have there's a lot of deficiencies because of the many vitamins and minerals involved in energy balance. A few key micronutrients are commonly found to be deficient, really, in the general population. And you named it, but particularly and not limited to vitamin D. But then you have also iron and calcium. They're on the top of the list too. But interesting. I was reading something that you had published on your social media. Let's move on to carnitine. So carnitine carries fatty acids into the cells so they can be burned for fuel. This helps reduce visceral adiposity. Talk to me, which is the belly fat. Talk to me about where you find this.
So carnitine, you can pick it up at any whole food store, any vitamin store. It's sold. It's a substance that basically helps the body turn fat into energy. And if your carnitine level is low, again, when these levels are not where they're supposed to be because you're not either eating enough, and many of us don't, even with as much as we try to eat healthy, many times we cannot acquire as much as we need to through just diet alone. And sometimes supplementation is needed. And I tell patients that's okay. If you need to supplement a few, you probably don't need a multivitamin ever, but you might need certain vitamins or supplements at certain points in your life, depending upon your hormones, what age you are, your gender, various things going on within your body. And so carnitine is an example of that. Carnitine, you can pick it up anywhere.
And what about calcium and some of the other ones that you had mentioned? Lipoic acid, biotin, vitamin D, cysteine, magnesium, all of these. Can you give me a little bit on each one of them?
There are so many. So biotin, I'll start with biotin because I think a lot of us think of biotin as something that helps with your hair, skin, nails. And I always tell patients, actually, biotin is so important for regulating your metabolism. If your biotin level is off, you're not going to have, your metabolism is going to be off. So biotin helps with lowering your insulin. It stabilizes your blood sugar. It helps, change all of what's going on with your fat formation as well. Chromium is another big one. Chromium makes your body more sensitive to insulin. So therefore it helps reduce your body fat, increases your lean muscle mass, which is what we all want, right? I know when I do my workouts, it's like you want that lean muscle. So chromium is something that a lot of patients are deficient in as well. There are so many more. Zinc is a big one. And we're going to talk about zinc later when we talk about libido, but a deficiency in zinc actually reduces leptin. And leptin is a hormone that regulates your appetite. And it's actually reversed by zinc repletion. So if your zinc is low, your libido might be low and also your weight might be off. And so it's important to, again, check some of these levels. And if you're not able to get these foods or get these vitamins through diet, then it's really important to supplement. Calcium, you mentioned as well. So calcium inhibits formation of fat cells. It helps to oxidize or burn your fat. So when your calcium is low, again, potentially linked to vitamin D, you want to make sure that you're taking enough calcium as well. And calcium, again, you don't want to, that's one of those where you do want to talk to someone before just supplementing and going and taking all these supplements. Because calcium, you shouldn't take more than 500 milligrams at a time. Your body isn't able to absorb more than 500 milligrams at a time. So it's also important, time of day is important of when you take these vitamins and supplements, and also how you take them and how much you take it at various times in the dosages. But there's a bunch more: vitamin E, vitamin A, magnesium is another one. Magnesium is also linked to just, general feelings and sleep and energy. And if you're not able to sleep at night, magnesium is actually helpful in restoring us. It actually helps patients sleep. It helps you calm. If you have restless legs or, muscle cramps,
Yeah.
magnesium is great for that. But also magnesium, correcting any deficiency, actually will stimulate your metabolism because it increases your insulin sensitivity. So all of a sudden your insulin can work a little bit better, and it can also inhibit fat absorption. So
I love it. It's like also correlated.
yeah.
I've been taking magnesium for forever, since I was a teenager. But let's move on because we have about 3.5 minutes. I want to talk about the sex drive diet. So, without sounding like a broken record, what we put into our bodies determines how well it functions. And by filling our body with unhealthy foods, inflammatory oils, and blood sugar wrecking ingredients that I call sexual health takes a nosedive, right? And instead focus on foods that I would like to instead focus on foods that increase my libido. So what are foods rich in zinc, antioxidants, B vitamins, and hearty, healthy omega-3 fatty acids that we can easily access? And what should we be looking out for to increase this sex drive?
So I know that most people have probably heard about aphrodisiac properties of oysters. Oysters is a big one, and really it's because of the zinc in there. So looking for any foods that have zinc, that actually is important. There's other foods: beef, baked beans, pumpkin seeds also contain zinc. So those are other ways that you can do it. Carnitine is also a big one. So high protein foods. So again, beef, chicken, all of those are important. And with libido and sex drive, it's important to note that sometimes for men, it's different than for women. So men, we're looking at increasing testosterone. For women, it might be just more of a dilation. So something that can increase or vasodilate. So garlic might be more likely for women, or even for, to help with libido. And it might be a little bit different. Salmon is another big food that people use and recommend for libido. And I've seen that help. So anything with omega-3 fatty acids as well. So that's a very big one. And then nuts and seeds. So again, instead of trying, candy, just try to snack on nuts and seeds, and that will probably help.
I love it.
Yeah.
I have a question. Maca. Have you heard of maca? Because maca is known as a superfood, and it's a Peruvian root that has long been used to increase strength, stamina, energy, fertility, and libido, both for men and women. And I started experimenting with this while research is still needed. But the maca root may alleviate SSRI-induced sexual dysfunction, including having beneficial effects on libido. And that's what they're studying it for. And, add a dash to your smoothie or coffee, and you see how you feel kind of concept in small doses. But that was interesting. And also, Dr. Solomon, carrots. I didn't realize this, but I guess the vegetable is known to help with balancing libido thanks to its high amount of beta carotene, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, definitely. And beets are another one, the beetroot. So I always tell patients, increase your beets. Try to, add beets to your salads different times. Beets are a big one as well. So I think all of those are good. I think you brought up a good point with SSRIs. There are certain medications that can decrease your libido. So again, when you're starting a medication, always look for some of the side effects that can happen. And then you want to supplement that with food or with any type of vitamin or supplement as well to complement that medication.
Yeah. And back to carrots, it's in my mind. I keep going back to it, but I put it in my smoothies. I use it on as a side dish all the time. But carrots help balance hormones, specifically estrogen, because they contain this unique indigestible fiber to help detox excess estrogen from the body, which was very interesting to me. So definitely sticking to that. And what about raspberries? How do you feel about those? Because I know they're rich in flavonoids.
Raspberries are great too for low libido. I think that you can use them. They're similar. I would even say strawberries. They can increase your sex drive because they're, again, rich in zinc. I think that's a big one. And I know that raspberries also help to they could potentially increase sperm production and libido as well. So those are big ones. Going back to the carrots, though, I just wanted to add, because I think there's a big thing that carrots also not just boost your metabolism, but they also strengthen your whole endocrine system. So I think it's really important to note that.
Oh yeah, I mean, they of course, with boosting metabolism is one thing, but specifically, I was researching it because my husband gets kidney stones, and he's a chronic kidney stone producer. And when I was researching carrots, one of the properties was that carrots help balance the it was the kidney function,
Yeah, they
strengthening the
strengthen your
kidneys. So
kidneys. Yeah.
that was interesting. Yeah, I retain bits and pieces of information because I do so many of these interviews, but it helps me really kind of understand, my own life, the way that I like to, conduct my business at home and what I put on the table to serve my family. So it all matters.
And dark chocolate. Dark chocolate is, again, it's an antioxidant, and that is definitely helpful in the bedroom as well, because it has the flavonols and it boosts your blood flow. It's definitely a big one, I think, especially, to try dark chocolate, even just 1 ounce or 1 square,
Just do it. Well, we're out of time, officially out of time. I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure. You're like an encyclopedia. You just started talking and you listed all the nutrients, and I'm running out to get them now. So thank you so much for coming on, Dr. Suzanne Solomon. You're amazing.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You got it. You definitely have to check her out. She's all over the gram. Check out her website, drsuzannesolomon.com, or at Dr. Suzanne Solomon. That was My Healthy Minutes segment, brought to you by ogpay.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Tempus, the next generation of the engagement economy, allowing people to make money on their data and earn cryptocurrency for the time they spend on things they already currently love to do. With Tempus, brands will have the ability to pay you directly for interacting with apps, watching videos, playing games, and more. Tempus, the time is now. Engage and earn.
If you've missed out dining in New York City for the past year, it's time to visit the legendary Vice Cucina. Located in the heart of Midtown, Vice specializes in blending delicious Northern Italian and American cuisine with dishes such as the incredible taglione lobster, ravioli masala, ossobuco, and pappardelle al telefono, along with many other mouthwatering offerings. You deserve a great night out. Call Vice Cucina 212-757-2600 or online at vicecucina.com.
Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m., or you could head to 710WOR.iHeart.com/A Moment of Zen. Remember to check us out on our YouTube channel, and you could subscribe directly on there. And make sure to check us out all over social media. That's at ZenSams with an X. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that make this happen. And most importantly, remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it. I'll see you next week.